Hi and welcome to the Ruby and Pearls knitting channel. My name is Leah and I'm coming to you today from West Wales in the UK, where I live with my partner and our 2 dogs, about a mile away from the coastline, and I have a standard format podcast episode for you again. It is a beautiful Sunday today here in the beginning of November, which is fairly rare. We've got lovely sunshine, a little bit of wind. We've been for a lovely dog walk. I've been for a run, so if I'm still a little bit pink, I do apologise. And I've decided to have a sit down and have a chat with you about my latest finished objects and current works in progress. So grab a drink, grab a project, and let's get cozy together. If you are new here, hi, welcome. I film these standard format podcast episodes fairly regularly on this channel. I also do pattern roundups and knit and chats, and I like to share my experience in garment making mostly with you, and share tips and tricks and things that have worked for me. So if you are new, I would love it if you could like and subscribe and leave me a comment down below what you're currently working on, and let's get into the content. So I have 2.5 finished objects today. And I jump in with the half finished object because I'm only showing it to you. It was actually finished last time, but I'm just showing you that I have attached the pom-poms. I'm going to try it on, so bear with. Woo! Okay, this is a bit better like that. There we are. This is Penny's Christmas hat or Penny's Santa hat, I'm not sure. It's a pattern by I Knit for a Cure. It's a web shop on Etsy, and I bought this pattern because I was asked to make this hat by a friend of a friend, so this is going to make its way to Switzerland at some point next week. And when I last showed it to you, it was still slightly damp. I had finished it, but these 2 bits were basically sticking up quite weirdly. But now that I've added the fluffy pom-poms, which are like a faux fur, a faux fur pom-pom, I think it looks much more just like a regular Santa hat, but then, you know, there are the 2 poms. And yeah, she's finished. She has a cute little cable, looking for words, on both sides, and I'm really pleased that it's done. And yeah, with the pom-poms on, I think it definitely looks a little bit better now. So that's finished object, kind of. That's the half one, because, you know, I did show you last time. My next finished object still has a yarn end attached, and I just need to weave it in. And the only reason I left it on there is because I blocked this and I wasn't quite sure if I'd done a good enough job with the seaming. So this is a headband. It's a free pattern and I cannot remember what it was called, so I will put it on screen. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. And I knit this for my friend who I'm sending the parcel to with that Santa hat. The hat is for her work colleague, but this is a gift from me to her, not a commission. And I asked her what she would like to have, and she said she would love to have a new headband, and preferably a neutral sort of creamy beigey colour. So I bought a whole bunch of this Wendy Merino. It's a superwash DK weight merino, slightly heathered colour, but almost entirely solid. And I bought a whole load of this sort of end of line from my local yarn shop, and I plan to make myself a fair few winter knitting accessories, but more on that in future planning videos. But this is the headband that I made. I don't think this colour does all that much for me, but it goes with everything, doesn't it? So that's why it's such a good colour. But yeah, this is not for me, it's for my friend. And the way this pattern works is you cast on a number of stitches. It's a free pattern, so I can tell you everything about it. You cast on, you knit a tube, you cast off, and then you kind of, I don't know how to show you this without, obviously it's already joined. But if you imagine this was an open end and this was an open end, you kind of fold both open ends in half like that, and then you slot them between each other like so, and then you seam that together. And the only thing I would mention if you are planning to make a headband like this is that you really have to make sure that you're going through every single edge when you're seaming, because I seamed it and then I folded it the other way around to reveal this knot. And you could definitely see cast on stitches. I hadn't gone through very nicely in several spots, so I did it again. And then I wasn't happy because on the inside you could really see the seam. It was very bulky and that will hit you right on your forehead, so I wasn't sure whether that would be very comfortable to wear, because it is quite a tight headband, so it's not very big. And I did increase the circumference because I felt like it wasn't quite wide enough. So I think I added maybe 8 stitches to the circumference, and therefore I ended up using 110 meters instead of 70. I just used up everything I had in this one ball of DK yarn. And then I went in and I basically seamed the edges together in like a mattress stitch. So I folded it all together and I started seaming in mattress stitch. And then I'd sort of fold the other way and seam in mattress stitch again. I did that a few times, and then I realised that it wasn't knotting in this beautiful like folded knot. And it was because I hadn't actually at one point gone through and caught all of those different layers together. So I ended up having to do that at the end and then sort of duplicate stitch over the top. So this bit here, as you can see there, I made a sort of mattress stitch seam. When if you did that as per pattern, you would just have like a straight seam there that you would be able to see if you pulled it apart. So I did all of that and I left this tail attached just in case I had to go back and undo something. But I think the inside, like that, looks a lot more comfortable to wear than had I just done this regular seam. So I'm very happy with that. I just need to weave in the end, and then my lovely friend Selena can hopefully wear this winter. Let's address the elephant in the room, which is my finished Halibut sweater. Can you believe I finally finished it? There it is in all its glory. I'm going to get up and show you how long this thing is, just to prove to you that I put a lot of work into it. So this is the Halibut sweater by Caitlyn Hunter from Boyland Knitworks, and I made this for my partner. Actually, I started it for myself and then it turned into a project for my partner. I think I finished the yoke and I'd learnt so much about ladder back jacquard and how to catch floats in a more neat way, and I was really pleased with this project. I thought it was really striking and really cool and really different. And then my partner said to me, would you make that for me? Can I have that? And I actually sized up because I thought in terms of circular yokes, I have broader shoulders than you would anticipate for my bust circumference. So in other words, my bust circumference is small for the rest of the dimensions of my body. And most patterns are graded as per bust circumference. And depending on how much ease is built in and whether a pattern has a certain type of construction, that isn't really a problem. But for round yokes, I've noticed that I tend to have to size up, otherwise I get bunching. And also, the bigger you do it, the bigger the the neck hole is, and therefore the further down it might come and the fewer sensory issues I might have on my throat. But I did actually end up adding in more short rows to the back, so I don't know if you can see, but there is quite a big chunk of short rows there. And I made all that earlier, I think at the start of this year or the end of last year, so I don't fully remember all the different things that I did. And then I shelved this project because it was stocking it in the round in black yarn. I knit mine in Wendy Mode, which is a 50-50 wool acrylic blend. It's nice and soft, it's easy to care for. And because I had made it large enough and in a yarn that is a bit more easy to care for, I thought, okay, I'm going to finish this for my partner. And I hadn't anticipated how incredibly long you have to knit everything when you knit for a man. So I tend to knit everything cropped, especially because I like to wear high-waisted jeans. So if I stand up again, I can show you where I would have knit this to for myself. So you can see where my jeans hit there, and you can see how much longer the sweater is. I could have easily knit this to this length and gotten away with it. So that would have been totally fine for me. So I had to add more and more length. Thankfully I had loads of yarn, so that wasn't a problem. The other reason why I had to add length, and a reason why I would probably add length to this if I was making it for myself as well, is because it has a very deep yoke, and the yoke actually blocked out to be even deeper. So as you can see, my armpit is here. And if I remember rightly, there might have even been like a tiny bit of more colour work at the top that I actually omitted. And I omitted any rounds that she instructed you to do before going into the sleeve split. I went as quickly into the sleeve split as I possibly could. Now it doesn't really bother me, but it is a bit bat wingy on me. But my partner's got really broad shoulders and quite large upper arms, and therefore this whole thing just sort of pulls up on him. I'll pop a picture in. I took a picture down the beach of him wearing this sweater this morning, and I've just reclaimed it for myself just for this episode. But it is for him. I think it fits him really well, and I think he's really pleased with it, especially after blocking. The sleeves were a bit short before blocking, but I think that is also because depending on what you're doing, as I said, because of the deep yoke, you kind of end up with it riding up. So if you move around too much, then it just stays up. And also, as you can see, I've got a fair amount of ease in the sleeve, but he hasn't got any ease in this sleeve at all. So if he moves around like this and the sleeve rides up, it doesn't just automatically fall back down like it does for me, because for me it's, you know, it's mid hand length, and actually I really like this length of sleeve. So if I was to make this again, I might even make the same size again, but I would make it probably about 15 to 20 centimeters less long, and that I think would have looked quite good for me. So I've learnt a lot through this project, and I'm so happy that I finally finished it, and I think I've got another halibut in me. We will see. I think I would like to have one for myself, so let me know what colour combination you would recommend that I should make, because thanks to learning the ladder back jacquard, I am more comfortable with high contrast like this. So yeah, and if you're wondering why this yoke is so deep, it's just because this motif is so long, and that I did try and think about whether there was any way I could do some maths and split the sleeves sooner and do the rest of the fish head, you know, on the sleeves and on the body and not in a circle. But it was too much brain work for me to figure out. So yeah, the halibut is done. I'm really happy. And with that, let's jump into my whips, and I'm going to show you my first commitment whip, because apparently I now like to have a commitment whip on the go at a time. So let's jump in. Actually, before I jump in, I would also like to mention I've got 3 slightly dormant whips at the moment. So the way I like to work is that I have all my current works in progress in a big fabric basket that lives under my table that is sort of next to my sofa, and I pull whips out of there as and when I, you know, fancy different projects. As soon as a project comes upstairs and gets put away, it becomes a dormant whip. And so I've got sort of semi-dormant whips downstairs that I don't really seem to be pulling out, but they're still there because I would still like to complete them. And the first one is the rosy sweater. I'm just going to keep mentioning the rosy sweater's still there. I just haven't done any work to it. The second one is the hoodie pattern that I showed you last time, the Transylvania hoodie. That one just hasn't had any work done to it because I've been too busy with other projects, but that's definitely still on the needles. And so is my mystery knit along, the mystery musicale from Stephen West. Unfortunately, in clue 4, we got to the point where there are almost 500 stitches on the needles, and I just have not been in a place where I fancied doing rows that are quite that long, and it's in brioche, and I feel quite uncomfortable leaving incomplete rows, so I feel like I have to work an entire row before I put it back down out of fear of dropping stitches and things. So yeah, the MCAL has been shelved, and I honestly don't know when I'm going to come back to it, but that's okay. That's not, you know, I did enjoy the project, and I would like to have the finished shawl. Or would I? I'm not a big shawl wearer, so I'm not even sure if I want the finished shawl. And I think that is what's holding me off working on it. So let's talk about my first whip. And this is the Miles shirt jacket by Ozetta. I'll put a picture in here, but I'm sure you have seen this before. It's been around for a few years. And I purchased this pattern, I think in 2022, when I was part of a knitting group, an online group, and we all decided to knit, or most of us decided to knit this pattern because it had just been released. This is a pattern that is knit in Mipithelabel, which is a Spanish unspun yarn. It is a very, very beautiful yarn. It's nice and soft. I really liked how it looked and how it felt, but I just could not get on with knitting with an unspun yarn. I found it very difficult to tension. The way I tension my yarn is that I wrap my working yarn around my index finger twice, and then between my ring finger and my pinky finger and down to the ball. And that was too much tension for unspun yarn, and I would end up ripping the yarn all the time. I also had issues with rowing out much more than I normally do. I always have issues with rowing out, and I counteract that by having a smaller needle on the pearl row. But yeah, it was just not working for me, and in the end I gave up on the project and I actually destashed that yarn. So I decided to knit this again, and that's mainly because of my other Ozetta patterns on the needles, but I just grabbed this one first, so I want to show you because it's my next commitment knit after finishing this one. And this is something I am knitting for my mum. So I had promised her a cardigan, and I was going to make a different one. If you've seen my autumn knitting plans, you will know which one I was planning to make. And at the moment, I'm just really craving plain stockinette, and I think my mum would wear this a lot. So I thought, why not scratch that itch of casting on a Miles shirt jacket, but make it for my mum. So far, I just have the upper back trapezoidal shape, and I've just started the straight section on the body. And it is in this beautiful purple shade, which is something I would never wear, but I really like the look of. And the yarn is yarn that I purchased at Wonderwool a couple of years ago, and it is called a Shetland type wool. And I asked the vendor what that means, and he essentially said it is not necessarily 100% Shetland wool from Shetland and Shetland sheep, but it is spun and processed in the same way as a lot of Shetland wool is. So the things like Jamieson's of Shetland, those kind of yarns, it is a very fine 2-ply. As you can see, it is very, very thin, and it came on these cones. I bought 2 cones, and I believe when I bought it, we kind of figured out together, me and the vendor, how many meters of yarn were on this on these 2 cones. But to be honest, it's been a couple of years, and I've worked with it before. I cast something different on for my mum, and it didn't end up happening. So I'm not really sure how much yarn I have. So initially, I was going to hold 3 strands of this together, along with Wendy 4-ply, again from my local yarn shop, in this absolutely gorgeous, I don't know if this is going to come up true to colour, in this gorgeous reddy bluey purpley colour. So it reads as a purple, but it has flecks of blue and sort of dark red in it. It's really, really dimensional, really beautiful. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it properly how this looks. And I started with 3 strands of this, 1 strand of this. This is a fingering weight, a thick fingering weight yarn. This is, God knows what this is, somewhere between a lace and a fingering, I'd say, but I do believe it will probably plump up when washed. And the fabric was lovely, but it was so dense, it was really hard on my hands. And this is a shirt jacket, so it is all knit flat. And I knew that that would really kill my hands because it's a 15 stitch gauge, and it's quite, that's quite taxing on the hands. So I decided to ditch 1 strand, also because I was a little bit worried that I'd end up playing yarn chicken, and I have no idea how I'd get more of this yarn. I know I can get more of this. So 2 strands of the thin one, 1 strand of this one, and it's a fairly airy fabric. You can see me through it, but I think it will plump up, and I think it's really lightweight. I think it's going to look really, really nice. So that is a Miles shirt jacket. I would like to make one for myself, but I'm making this one for my mum first. A, because I need to get a move on and making her Christmas present, and B, because it has the classic trapezoidal shape with the rapid increases where you increase every single row, and I find that that gives me a lot of sensory issues on my upper back because it sort of pulls your arms back. So I'm going to knit my mum's one first, see how I feel about it when I put it on, because we are a similar size, so I'm knitting the same size as I would knit for myself, and go from there. So yeah, that's the Miles shirt jacket. Let's talk about my other Ozetta whip. My other Ozetta whip is the Lace Pullover V-neck, and it is so pretty. Look at that V. Isn't that just gorgeous? Oh, I'm not doing a very good job of holding it. There we are. I have worked the yoke. I've worked 1 sleeve. I am on the other sleeve. And if you haven't watched my knit and chat that I did the other day about garment fit, you might not have heard me talk about this project yet. But I am knitting this sweater as part of a buddy knit along with my lovely friend Emily from Emilie Knits. And the way this came about, I'm just going to hold it up one more time. There we are. The way this came about was because we both have really struggled to make well-fitting garments this year. And we have been brainstorming what the reason is for that. And I know that Emily is comfortable with me sharing her reasons and sharing mine, obviously. So my reasons I sort of expressed in that knit and chat. But if you haven't seen it, just to quickly summarise, I have had some gauge issues this year. I have had some fit issues in terms of not really knowing how much positive ease I like, and only very recently, after sort of 5-6 years being a consistent garment knitter, I've actually figured out how much ease I really like to have. And for the last year, I've been getting better at just knitting things in the colour sort of schemes that I like to wear and in the stitch patterns that I like to wear. But that has been a long learning curve as well. For Emily, it's been a little bit different. I think she has also taken a while to figure out what her style is and what she likes to wear. But the main reason she's been having some issues with her project is due to weight loss and starting projects and she likes to have a lot of different whips on the go. I'm sure she won't mind me sharing that. And because she has a lot of projects on the go at the same time, she doesn't tend to finish them all that rapidly, even though she's a fast knitter, because she works little bits on every project as she goes along. So a garment pattern might take her a couple of months to finish, and by the time she's finished, her body has not been at the same stage as it was when she started it and picked a size, and that has been very unmotivating for her, because she might finish a garment and then it's too big and not flattering on her. And for that reason, she has been struggling a little bit to also finish things this year and have successful garments. So we got together online and had a chat about what we could do to alleviate these problems. So we decided to knit this as a buddy knit along. And the way this has been working is that we went online, went on Ravelry, and we looked for patterns that we both fancied making. And Emily said she would really like to make a pullover sweater, not a cardigan. So I went through sort of favourites that I've recently found, and we then went and looked at people's project pages to see whether they looked flattering on different bodies and whether, you know, everybody's version looked as good or almost as good as the designers, because quite often they don't, and that is a little bit off-putting, I think. So we landed on the lakes because we felt that it looked good on just about everybody who knit it, and it looked neat and professional on everybody who knit it, and the fit looked good on everybody. We were just really blown away by this pattern. And obviously I've been aware of Ozetta. I knit the Seasons cardigan many years ago, but I made very bad yarn choices and it grew like crazy because it was a brioche cardigan. And then obviously the Miles shirt jacket didn't work out because I couldn't get on with the yarn and the way I tensioned my yarn. So I haven't actually got a finished project by Ozetta, but now looking through her catalogue, you know, I could knit pretty much anything that she makes. I think her patterns are very, very effortlessly easy to wear, and her patterns are really easy to follow. So if you're fairly new to garment knitting, maybe give Ozetta a go and not just Petite Knit, because that's the one that gets, you know, recommended maybe more often to a beginner. But anyway, we landed on the lakes and we both like a saddle shoulder construction. We both find they fit really well. I ended up choosing the Lakes V, whereas Emily went for the Lakes crew neck. And the main reason I went for the V-neck is because the V-neck has a 17 stitch gauge, whereas the crew neck has an 18 stitch gauge. And the yarn I am using is King Colt Simply Denim Chunky, which I have almost within reach over here, in this beautiful light blue shade 6144 Sky Denim. And I had this in stash and I wanted to use it, and it gives me a 16 stitch gauge, so it's closer to the V-neck gauge than the crew neck gauge, and therefore I thought I would make the V-neck. Plus I don't really have any V-necks in my wardrobe, and I really liked the fact that this was a fairly shallow V and it wasn't, you know, I think a deeper V is not that flattering on a small bust like mine. So I went for the V-neck, and all I did was I wasn't quite sure which size I should pick because my gauge is too big. It's 16, not 17 stitches. And because this is a saddle shoulder, I actually knit the saddles first and just measured my gauge on there. So perfect for gauge swatching. If you don't like gauge swatching, knit a saddle shoulder, measure the saddle. More on that in a moment because I have another saddle shoulder on the go. So that's what I did. And then I ended up checking in the pattern which size I should make based off of the full bust. So I went further forward in the pattern where the body joins in the round, and I checked how many stitches you have on the needles for size 2 and for size 3, because I was falling somewhere in between the two. And I divided that number by 16, which is the stitch count I got on my personal gauge, to check how many centimetres that would make. And size 2 actually gave me 116 centimetres, which is 26 centimetres of positive ease, which is my sweet spot. So I thought, perfect, I'm going to knit size 2. I didn't make any modifications in terms of lengths, so I knit the yoke to the length that Ozetta recommends. So the way she writes her patterns, she actually tells you how many rows to work, as well as how much that is supposed to measure when it's done. And obviously, because I've got a bigger gauge, I've also got a bigger row gauge, and therefore everything is slightly longer. So this saddle is a bit longer, this depth is a bit longer, but I don't mind that. And I've only moved by one size, because if I had gotten gauge, I probably would have made size 3. So I feel like if you're only going to move around by one size up or one size down, it's not really a problem to just go with the measurements that are there. If you're going to move further around within a pattern because of gauge, because you're completely redoing the whole thing, then you will have to be more aware of like yoke depths and things like that. But I didn't have to do that for this pattern, and it fits really well. I'm really pleased with how it's looking. And the only thing that's there's two things holding me up with this. The first one is it is quite a big gauge, and that's quite hard on my hands, and it's a good idea for me to pace myself. The second thing is that we decided to have check-in points, so points where we stop and wait for each other. And poor Emily, bless her, she's been having a lot of shoulder pain through her knitting. And obviously large gauge stuff is much bigger movement in your hands, therefore causing you more pain. And for that reason, she's had to take it really slow with this project. She has given me permission to start the second sleeve, even though she hasn't finished the first one. But we've done like little check-in points where we're supposed to stop and wait for each other. And yeah, I've really, really enjoyed this so far, and I cannot wait to wear this. I will wear the crap out of this. This will be worn all the time, I think. It's really, really nice. It's so soft. This yarn is so good. I love this yarn. There's also a DK weight version, and I've got a sweater quantity in my stash that I really need to get into knitting up. So, too much yarn, not enough time, right? My third and final work in progress that is currently actively being worked on, I'm going to show you the yarn first. I am using these two beautiful shades. This is Drops Soft Tweed, and this is Drops Brushed Alpaca Silk. And I can't for the life of me remember the shade names. This one's quite new and it's really tweedy. You can see it's got lots of sort of darker flecks within it. It's really beautiful. And yes, I'll leave the shade names on screen because the ball bands don't actually have names, they just have numbers on, and I think that's kind of pointless. So anyway, what am I making? I am making the Inge cardigan by Care from Mipithelabel. So this is actually a test knit that I signed up for, and I was very grateful to get this test knit, and it's a very fun project. And I am at an awkward spot where I might find it hard to show you, but I will do my best. So this is, I'm going to put a picture in, but I'm only able to put a picture in of the sweater version because Care has done a sweater and cardigan within the same pattern. I applied to test knit either, and she asked me to do the cardigan version. And something I've not experienced in a test knit before, and I wanted to highlight, and I'm really, really grateful for, because this is something that I messed up with. I applied for this test knit and the test call was quite long. It was like a week or a little bit more by the time you found out whether you got the test knit. And I applied, and by then forgot which size I had applied for, because, you know, there were varying sizes that would have worked. And by that point, I had my revelation about wanting 25 centimetres of positive ease for just about every sweater I'll ever make in the future. So when I got the test knit, I can't remember which size I applied for, but I believe it was size 2 or 3, probably 3. But I am now testing size 4, and she basically, without me even asking, she put at the start of the test knit group chat, feel free to pick whichever size you would like. If you've made, you know, if you've changed your mind which size you would like to make, just go for it. It doesn't matter. And I thought, wow, that's really, really kind, because obviously she's picked people based off of which size they wanted to test. So yeah, that worked out really well for me, and I'm really grateful for that. But anyway, there is no cardigan version yet, so I can only show you the sweater. But they start off the same, I believe, in that you start off with this really, really beautiful saddle shoulder section. And she instructs you to use that as the gauge swatch, so that's what I did. So this is blocked, and I knit the other saddle and I actually blocked the other saddle as well, because it felt weird to have one that was cinching in and one that was blocked. And then the reason this is all curling up is because I don't ever put stitches on hold. When you're instructed to put the back yoke stitches on hold, I just leave them on the cable and I work the fronts, and then it's already there when you go to join. So the back is then worked in this, I believe this is Andalusian stitch, because it's very reminiscent of Knit Pearl Girl patterns. This first panel at the top, and you do some short rows, and the way you pick up, there's like one knit column here that frames this pickup really nicely. And then when you finish this panel, you do this lateral braid, and this lateral braid is actually done with a crochet hook, which I thought was really, really cool. And then you work this texture panel, and at the end of this texture panel, you do some really pretty increases for the underarm shaping. And I have just started the front. So I have just finished the short rows in the right front, and I'm about to start increasing for the neckline. And then I believe it has either 1x1 or 2x2 ribbing for all the bands, but obviously I haven't actually seen a finished item photo of the cardigan, so I'm not 100% sure, but I think I'm going to put some wooden buttons on this, and I think this is going to be really cozy and really beautiful. And I know I have mentioned that I really like wearing stockinette, and that I like knitting stockinette, but this is really simple texture. Like, this isn't difficult to memorize. It really, you know, you look at the chart once and then you know what you're doing. And that is really comfortable for me and comforting for me to knit at the moment. And the other thing is, this is an extremely neutral colour. So even though it looks like quite a complex pattern, it will still look very minimalistic while worn. And that is something I'm quite drawn to. And the tweedy flecks are just absolutely perfect. I think there was a time when I didn't like tweedy yarns, and I can't believe that time existed, because this is so beautiful. It is quite a dense fabric, so I'm knitting this on a 4.5mm needle, and I think the designer instructs you to use a worsted weight and a lace weight mohair. This is a light DK in my experience, and this is, it's difficult, isn't it? To me, this is a fingering weight mohair substitute, but drops call it an Aran weight, so who knows? I mean, you could knit this at an Aran gauge and it'd be very airy and very nice and like a blousey type of thing. But when you hold it together with something, to me, this is more like 2 strands of mohair. But this is thinner, so I'm hoping than what the designer used as the main strand. So I'm hoping this will work out. I think I've got gauge. It's a little bit difficult to say, because she tells you the gauge that you have to get is 19 stitches in this stitch pattern. So obviously different stitch patterns cinch in more than others. You can see this one here at the top. I should show it you at the top. This one is a sort of looser looking fabric, and then this one cinches in a bit more because it's more ribbed. So yeah, there are different bands going throughout with these, separated with these beautiful lateral braids, and I'm really, really excited to work on this. It took me a few days to sort of get into it actually, but now that I've gotten a bit of progress on it, that's all I want to knit on, which is good because it means I can put my legs down for a little bit, let Emily catch up, and then we can actually finish that together, because that was the main thing for this buddy knit along. We wanted to have a success roughly at the same time. So those are my 3 whips at the moment that I am just working on whenever I fancy it. And yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed seeing what I'm working on. I hope that I'll get some progress done on some other projects that I've been sitting around for a while by next time, but I'm not making any promises, because knitting is my hobby and I knit what I want to knit, but I try to, you know, make the odd thing for other people as well and get things done, like the halibut. I'm so pleased this is finally finished, and it's been really nice and cozy to wear. I do think I should make one for myself. Do you think I should make one for myself? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what colour I should make, especially those of you who watch me regularly and who know what kind of colours I like. I mean, I've shown you a light blue whip and a beige whip. You know, you get the drift. So yeah, thank you so much for being here again today, and I hope to see you very soon. Happy knitting. Bye bye.